Everyone around you is complaining. The heating bills, the dark mornings, the cold that gets into your bones before you've even left the house. Your phone is full of people counting down to spring, booking flights somewhere warm, posting about how they can't wait for this to be over. And you're sitting there, quietly, genuinely confused by all of it. Because for you, something different is happening. When the temperature drops and the days shorten and the world outside turns gray and still, something inside you doesn't shrink, it expands. There's a specific kind of exhale that only happens in winter. When you pull a blanket tighter, watch the cold press itself against the window, and feel, maybe for the first time in months, completely and utterly at peace. You're not performing that feeling. You're not being contrarian. You genuinely feel better in winter than you do in the bright, loud, socially demanding stretch of summer. And somewhere along the way, you started to wonder if something was wrong with you for feeling that way. There isn't. In fact, what's actually happening inside you during winter says something remarkably specific about the kind of mind you have and the kind of world your nervous system is built for. If that already sounds like your inner life, stay with me for this one. And if this channel is new to you, hit subscribe. We break down the psychology behind the things most people never think to examine about themselves. Leave a comment below too. I read every single one. Because what I'm about to share with you isn't just about a seasonal preference. It's about why certain minds don't just tolerate winter, they come alive in it. And once you understand the psychology behind it, you'll stop apologizing for loving the season that everyone else is trying to survive. Here's what nobody tells you about people who love winter. It isn't moodiness. It isn't a coping mechanism. Psychologists call it sensory processing sensitivity, a trait found in roughly 20% of the population that describes a nervous system which processes the world more deeply, more thoroughly, and more intensely than average. More input gets in. More of it gets felt. More of it gets processed before the mind moves on. For people with this trait, the relentless stimulation of summer, the brightness, the heat, the social expectation to be out and visible and energetic, doesn't just feel tiring. It feels like a kind of assault the body never quite recovers from. Every long, bright day is another demand on a nervous system that was already working at full capacity. And then winter arrives, and the volume of the world turns down. The light softens. The cold keeps people indoors. The social calendar thins out without explanation or apology needed. And for a mind that has been quietly overwhelmed since April, that shift doesn't feel like loss. It feels like relief. The research behind this is more grounded than most people realize. Studies on environmental psychology have consistently found that humans respond to their physical surroundings in ways that go far beyond personal taste. There is a documented phenomenon researchers call contrast effect comfort, the measurable psychological satisfaction that comes from being warm and enclosed while a harsh environment exists just beyond the window. Your nervous system registers the cold outside and the warmth inside simultaneously, and the gap between them produces a quiet but real neurological reward. A signal that says, you are safe, you made it, you are exactly where you should be. Summer doesn't offer this. In summer, staying indoors feels like a failure, like you're missing something the world is offering, and you're too something to take it. Your brain registers the choice to stay home as loss. But in winter, staying home isn't avoidance. It's the obvious, correct, deeply satisfying answer to the question the season is asking, and your nervous system knows the difference. Here's where it goes deeper than comfort. Researchers have also found that cognitive performance, focus, memory, creative thinking, peaks in cooler environments. The optimal temperature range for complex mental work sits between 18 and 21 degrees Celsius. In winter, your home naturally hovers in that range. Your brain isn't expending energy managing heat. It isn't fighting fatigue caused by overexposure to bright light. It has more left over for the things that actually matter to you: the thinking, the reading, the creating, the slow and satisfying work of going deep into something instead of skimming the surface of everything. This is why so many people who love winter describe feeling more like themselves between October and March. More focused, more creative, more capable of the kind of sustained inner work that gets crowded out during the rest of the year. It isn't imagination. Your brain is literally functioning closer to its peak. And there is something even older underneath all of this. For thousands of years, winter was a season of conservation. Humans slowed down, stayed close to warmth, turned inward, and did not feel guilty about any of it, because the season itself made the choice for them. That rhythm is still written into your biology. Winter people aren't fighting nature. They're the only ones still listening to it. And here's the part that most people never say out loud. Winter gives you something that no other season does. It gives you permission. Permission to cancel without explanation. Permission to stay in without justification. Permission to move slowly, think quietly, exist without performing. In summer, the world expects you to be visible, to be social, to be on. And for people who find that performance quietly exhausting, summer isn't freedom. It's a 3-month obligation dressed up in sunshine. But in winter, the world lowers its expectations. Nobody questions why you're home. Nobody asks why you're not out. Nobody needs you to be brighter or louder or more available than you actually feel. And for someone whose nervous system has spent the rest of the year accommodating a world that moves too fast and demands too much, that quiet reprieve isn't a small thing. It is, for many winter people, the only season where life finally feels sized right. So here is what your love of winter actually says about you. It says you are someone who feels things deeply and needs space to process them properly. That your nervous system is finely tuned and honestly a little tired of being overstimulated. That you don't need the world to be loud and bright and full to feel alive, because your inner world is already rich enough to sustain you when everything outside goes quiet. You're not antisocial. You're not depressed. You're not hiding from life. You are someone who has found the season that finally matches the pace your mind actually runs at. And there is nothing wrong with you for feeling most like yourself when the rest of the world is trying to get through to the other side. Winter isn't where you survive. It's where you breathe. The question worth sitting with isn't why you love it. It's why you ever felt like you had to apologize for that. Tell me, are you a winter person? Does this sound like you? Drop it in the comments. I genuinely want to know. If this hit home for you, please subscribe. There's a lot more of this kind of depth coming. And if you want to keep going, the next video explores the psychology of people who love staying home, and why that quiet preference is far more intentional and far more powerful than the world gives it credit for.